an original.
From Story Studio Network.
Well, here we go. It's November the 14th. It's a Tuesday, in case you're taking notes at home. Welcome in. It's Now and Next. I'm Dave Trafford for Story Studio Network. And back in the feed with, we'll call them live shows this week. Last week we featured the limited series we did with the RCAF Foundation. And it was all about celebrating our aviation history in this country. And it's a really cool story. If you don't know the story and the connection of Amelia Earhart to Toronto, go and listen. Yeah, that was the Wednesday drop. And my favorite out of all the ones we did with the RCAF Foundation was the story about William Barker and who he is, why we need to pay attention to him, and why the RCAF has a really close connection to the Toronto Maple Leafs historically, from the time that the Leafs became the Leafs to this day. Anyways, it's a good series. So if you want to learn a little bit more about it, it's called Pathways to the Stars is the series. And the foundation has also just released a coffee table book. And it's got great stories. They're going to celebrate 100 years, the anniversary in April of 2024. And they tell 100 stories of the history of aviation. Of course, there's thousands they could tell. So I'm guessing there's going to be another book coming out. But if you get a chance, go to their website, the RCAF Foundation. And while you're there, if you're so inclined, you can make a donation, and they have scholarships for kids who are involved in STEM programs and interested in aviation. So that's the plug. But we're back in the chair this week. Welcome in. And we are going to get to talk about some of the stuff going on stateside with the latest developments in their politics, etc. David Schultz is going to join us on the Thursday show. And he is the professor of constitutional law at Hamline University, political science as well. And he has some pretty interesting insights in it. The last piece I saw that he wrote said 10 reasons why Democrats should be really worried. Mm-hmm. And not to spoil it, but he has done the analysis on the number of votes it would take for either Biden or Trump to win the next election. And he has it down to 5% of the voters in 5 counties in 5 states. They are going to choose the next president of the United States in a country of 400 million people. That's what it's going to come down to. And our friends at Daily Bread have issued the Who's Hungry report this week, and it's not good. So Neil Hetherington, the CEO at Daily Bread, is going to drop by and talk to us about what's in it, new findings. Numbers are up by 50% over last year. I think in March of this year was the last number I heard in terms of monthly visits, 270,000 visits a month to food banks in Toronto alone. So, and you know what's interesting here is when the pandemic hit, Neil was in studio with me on the radio show, and he said, yep, this is going to spike right away, but it's going to take about 4 or 5 years before that spike stops and starts to decline. And we're only into year 3. So we're halfway through, and we're already seeing these disturbing numbers. But so that's this week, coming up on Now and Next. Today, happy to welcome in, I hate to say old colleagues, because that just doesn't sound right anymore. Longtime friends and colleagues. Barb DiGiulio is here, veteran broadcaster, and actually a host on one of our Story Studio Network shows to be released in the new year. We're excited about that. We won't spoil that yet, because there will be some fanfare around that. And Bob Reid's here from Broadway Strategies. How are you?
Woo-hoo. Doing well. Good to be with you guys.
I if I look like I'm favoring my left arm, you can't see that if you're listening, but I got the shot yesterday. I got my COVID booster. And it's funny, out of all the shots I've had with the COVID, I've never had any kind of an effect. This is it's a little tender.
Sore.
Yeah. And I had the
Yeah.
flu shot in the other arm, and there's no problem there. So it was funny. So anyway, no shortage of vaccines at the Shoppers Drug Mart I was at, but I gather there's a few shortages elsewhere. We were talking about that on the ledge last week with John Wright and Keith Leslie and the mess that the Ford government seems to have self-inflicted. I mean, just in terms of giving shoppers that exclusive right. Anyway, I was quite happy there was no cancellation at our end, but got the appointment, rolled up the sleeve, and we're all good. And I don't know about you guys, but I found that it kind of drifted away from me in terms of urgency. Flu shot came up because, well, it's, November, and that kind of hit me. But I've been putting off the COVID, and not because I don't think it's useful. I just kind of out of my peripheral vision to get the booster.
Haven't we all kind of been waiting for this newer one, this variant included one? This is the sort of thing that I remember we were at the pharmacy probably a couple months ago asking about it. And the pharmacist said, oh, that one's going to be the newest. It's going to be available in a month or two, probably wait for that one. But I think overall there is absolutely less urgency. I mean, we've got it in our plans to go ahead and do it. But I know a lot of people who are just kind of like, I'm not sure if I'm going to go ahead with it this time.
Yeah, I'm hearing that, Bob.
Yeah. It has felt for, thankfully, quite some time now. It has felt like COVID's over. It's behind us. It's done. And it's not. We see the updates. We see the reports that it is still out there. And anecdotally, I hear from friends who are coming down with it. Just yesterday, one of my real life friends, but also on Facebook, he posted that his wife and son are down with it right now.
Wow.
And so it's out there, it's percolating away, but you're right, Dave. It has sort of become more back of mind than front of mind. And Barb, I'm with you. I'm going to get my booster, but I was waiting for the new and improved variant form of the vaccine that is now widely available. So that's what I was waiting for. And I was really surprised too, because when I was going through the booking of an appointment process online, it asks for the date of your last booster. So I had to go back through my file and find it. And I thought, oh yeah, it's been 6 months, like I'm due. No, it was a year ago. It was last November when I got the last one. And I went, wow, it's been that long.
Yeah, I think mine was the last December. So, and it was,
I feel like mine was too. Yeah.
And we were all pretty much on the clock there, right? Within a few weeks of each other, everybody was kind of getting there, but now it just kind of drifts away. Anyway, happy that I got it. But, and to your point though, the number of people, we've been at weddings, we've been at, various kinds of celebrations over the last 6 months, and almost every event was followed up by an email that said somebody tested positive.
Oh,
wow.
Right. But there wasn't the panic in that. Okay, well, do a test, see how we're doing, and we'll be okay. And I don't know, have you guys watched the morning show on Apple TV?
Have not.
Okay.
Keep hearing about it. Have not watched it.
You've got to watch it because I think somebody in that production crew really spent time working on a morning show. I know Brian Stetler was involved in that, but the point is the one season, there's a season in there where COVID hits and they're in the middle of it all. So that gets dropped, and we rewatched it because we wanted to kind of get continuity from the new season that's just out. So we watched that season again where COVID hit, and it was triggering because the reactions in the show reminded me of how scary it was. I mean, if you got COVID, you were down and out, and it was a there was an existential threat there. So it's easy to, a couple of years later, sort of put that in the rearview mirror and forget that that's the reaction that we had back in, the spring of 2020.
And I do absolutely have that on my list to watch because a friend of mine really loves it. But I have to say, and I told her the same thing, any show that depicts the broadcast industry, especially if they do it very well, feels like work when I'm watching it. I almost get that kind of exhaustion.
Yeah.
It's a different trigger. Absolutely. But I do hear it's so well done, and I do plan to watch it for sure.
Yeah. Well, if the broadcasters are watching it and giving it thumbs up, it's a pretty good show.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a rare thing. That's a rare thing, isn't it? Usually the case that any business, any occupation, any profession that gets depicted on TV or in film, the complaints are immediate. Like, that's nothing like how it really works. And don't these people know anything about this business? But it sounds like they're really nailing this one.
Yeah, no, it's good. Even the goofy bits that go on. And the funny part was, I forget what it was a story that ABC broke vis-a-vis Donald Trump, and so they were citing it on the cable news channels, CNN and Fox and MSNBC and so on. But I wanted to go to ABC and see the story. So I went to ABC and watched their morning show. It was the dumbest piece of shit I've ever seen on television. I mean, it was awful, right? And I maybe the reason that I don't mind the morning show, the series, is because they've actually made it look a lot smarter than those morning shows are. It's crazy. So I might be okay there. Bad Boy. Barb, you know what? I don't know what you do here. Bad Boy goes into bankruptcy. That's the Lastman family's legacy. And I still think it's a bit creepy that their ads still included Mel in them years after his death. But people are kind of left out hanging. I mean, they've made big purchases. They are not getting their furniture or whatever it is, the appliances that they bought. And they're out lots of dough.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do with this.
So here's the weird thing. It's one thing if they shut the doors and say we're in bankruptcy, and you've lost your deposits and you're not going to be getting your furniture, whatever you ordered. But the weird thing is they are still open. They are still open, and you've got people showing up to the stores saying things like, I got a gift certificate for an event, for a wedding. Someone gave me $1,000 gift certificate, or what do you call them? Gift card. I can't use it. The store won't let me use it. I've put down $2,000 on a set or $5,000 on a set. I'm not going to get the set, but I'm walking in the store and saying, you have it right there. I've paid. Let me just pay the balance and take it. No, it doesn't work that way, because anyone who has bought gift cards or put deposits down, I guess, are considered creditors now. And they cannot they're going to lose whatever they put down. They cannot just get their stuff, but other people can walk in and buy that same item. And I get it. It's very, frustrating for people. They've sunk a lot of money into this. And I think for the company, and it's a good reminder to all of us, the only way people might have some protection is if they put that money down on a credit card. If they put their deposit on a credit card, if they bought a gift card on a credit card, they might be able to get a charge back. Not everyone does that. I hope we all do, because it really is a smart way to be insured, but not everybody does that. And it's a tough situation. And I feel like the owners of companies, like the same with the WeWork bankruptcy situation, the owners always walk away okay. And it's everybody else who loses, and the employees now who are having to face these angry customers who are not going to get what they have put money toward.
I understand how bankruptcy works, but at the same time, it seems inherently unfair that under any other circumstance, if you paid for something and you didn't get what you paid for, that's fraud. That's, criminally actionable if you've given money and you're not getting what you paid for in return. But under bankruptcy protection, it's like, yep, sorry, we're broke. We ran out of money. Can't help you. Too bad. And Barb, you're especially right. The weird sort of double standard that the doors are still open and they're still transacting business with some people, but people in the other category with, as you said, gift cards or deposits down. Yeah, sorry, too bad, so sad. It's inherently unfair.
Especially these days, we talk about it whenever we talk about grocery rents. The struggle is real. And for people to save up 1,000, 2,000, put it toward a piece of furniture, or a living room set or something, that is a lot of money for people to lose. And how do you work your way back up to that? It does seem very unfair.
Well, and here's the complication is, and to your point about them keeping the doors open, they're trying to restructure the whole business to begin with. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go away, but how they manage all that financially in the meantime, trying to fix their own cash flow crisis. Well, now a whole lot of customers have got that. I mean, I don't know what you do about that in terms of brand rehabilitation, even if they come back, Bob.
No, the toll on that, because they've broken faith, right? They have lost the trust of so many of their consumers, whom they depend on, and even by extension, us talking about it. I've never bought anything from Bad Boy, but I sure as hell wouldn't. Even if they do restructure and they survive and live on in a different way, I'm never going to have that confidence based on this that I won't get burned down the road. And that is critical. That's the kind of thing that really does kill a brand.
I've been listening a lot, sport radio recently, and probably less so these days because I spend less time in the car. But when I'm in the car, I've got it on, listening to either the Fan or TSN. And I am shocked by how much coverage Taylor Swift is getting. Like, and you can hear the commentary, really, we got to talk about this. But it has just become, this kind of phenomenon with wind under its own wings. And she has infiltrated the NFL and sport radio and sports commentary just right around the globe, in fact.
We talk about the popularity of Hallmark movies. Take a singer and an NFL star. It's like the best rom-com ever invented. But here's the thing. I get it. Now, I come from a sports background, and I teach at a sports college right now. I get when she went to the first Kansas City game that she appeared at, and she was at the game. I get that it was part of the story. And it was, and it created a lot of hype for the game, and both sides, great for their brands. I hope it's a legit thing, and I think it is, but it's great for both of their brands regardless. But beyond that, him traveling to Argentina to see her on the weekend has no sports relevance, right? You've got fans of TSN now calling it the Taylor Swift Network. And I don't know that they need to be giving it this much oxygen. It's a cute story. It continues to be a cute story. I hope it works out for them. But beyond her appearing at an NFL game and the mania that went along with that, as a former sports broadcaster and current sports broadcast teacher, it doesn't deserve much more than a mention. You don't really need to give it a lot of airtime. That's my opinion.
Well, here's where it took a bit of a wrinkle yesterday when I was listening. And I think it was Brian Hayes was saying, if this begins to affect his play, I mean, he was in Europe. They had a game in overseas.
Yes.
And then they traveled back, and he was in New York for whatever party was going on. And then he was down in Argentina. He still got to catch the football and help the Chiefs win. If that gets in the way, all of a sudden, the Hallmark story turns into a problem for both of them.
Yes. And he just broke a team record for receiving yards. I mean, he's on his game. He's got his game. But you're right. That's the only way then it becomes another part of the story. It's now moved into entertainment category, right? So I think deep down, sports broadcasters love to stray from sports, love to have something different to talk about. And you got to find that balance because you don't want to anger your listeners or your viewers. People have been somewhat swept up in this story. But yeah, if it does affect his play, sure. It hasn't affected his play. So if and when that happens, then I guess we'll focus on it. Bob, you Swiftie? You got any Swifties in the house?
None in the house here, but I find her just absolutely fascinating as such a a huge industry unto herself. It's amazing. You see the economic impact studies when she does 4 nights in a city somewhere, and what that means for the hotel business and the restaurant business and all of it. So she's not just another pop star. She really is a force in the world of music, and then in the spillover, just because of the sheer numbers that she does. So I can understand why there's so much attention paid to her versus very few others, who carry that kind of impact. We wouldn't be seeing as much coverage if she was not at the level that she is, but she is. And so it's a legit story, but I'm with you, Barb. I find it amazing that we're still talking about this now, because what's it been? Well over a month, 6 weeks since this started. Like, it was the beginning of the football season. When their relationship became known, and when she went to that first game, that's all great. But attention spans are so short in this day and age. I'm like, really? That's still got legs? That's still going?
Well, part of it is, though, I think, talking about, Swift and Kelce as opposed to salary cap, I would take the Swift and Kelce story anytime. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, it drives me crazy when I listen to the radio or even get into some of the conversations on television, on the networks, and they get so down in the weeds about who has to do what to actually move forward. And they talk about the salary cap hit as if they know what they're talking about. I've been listening to that conversation for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
I still don't get it. I mean, so,
yeah.
Can
or
we
the
just
Leafs goaltending situation. The Leafs goaltending. It's the same story we've been talking about for 10 years.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I love that one, not to get off on a tangent, but here you've got, there was a moment when both goalies were performing really well and they were fighting for the net, and the sports commentary insisted that it was a controversy. Right? Like, it's not really. It's probably pretty good if you keep the puck out of that. So I just think it's the state of, having said that, sports radio, right? There used to be a day when having the game live on the radio was a big deal. Now I can get the scores wherever I want on my phone, et cetera. It's commodity news, so to speak. So unless you've got something that's really engaging vis-a-vis that commentary, it's hard to get an audience.
Give me a reason to listen, right? And this is what I tell my students. It is very easy to turn on the microphones and talk about sports for an hour. What's not easy is to entertain people and to give them something that makes them want to come back and listen to you. And I think part of the trick to that, even back in the early days of sports radio here in Toronto, because the Fan was the first all sports radio in Canada, we had this spontaneous thing that happened where we would do some non-sports stuff, and it was some of the most popular stuff we did, even though you didn't have, as you say, necessarily the immediate access to everything that you do now. People like a break. People like to laugh. People want to, be informed and entertained. Just to be informed, I can get that anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Personality and opinion are key. And it's the same, in our talk radio world, where a dominant story will be done to death. Everybody's heard everything about it, but there are those commentators that I still want to hear about. Yeah, I know everything about this story, but I really want to hear what she has to say when she cracks the mic on, the next day's show. I want to get that take. I want to hear that specific individual's perspective. That's the real value add.
Well, and that's kind of how I qualify the success of Bob McCown when he was on the Fan and even doing the podcast. Now getting over, he's had 2 or 3 strokes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sad story, but that's what made him magic, because something would happen and I turned that radio on in the afternoon and what's Bob got to say about this? And I didn't always agree with him. I think he's a curmudgeon and could be an asshole to his guests and his co-hosts. But at the same time, you're right. You really kind of wanted that insight to sort of ground where you are in the conversation, right? So, maybe it's the Swift Kelce story does that to some degree because, we're not talking about X's and O's and
salary cap
and all that nonsense, right? So
it's a fun diversion.
Yeah, it is. Are you going to miss the beer store, Bob? So it looks like the government at Queen's Park is getting prepared to give notice that they're going to end the master agreement with the breweries, and they would no longer have sort of exclusive distribution rights to most of the beer in this province. It's a pretty complicated deal. It's not quite as easy as just saying, okay, that's good enough. Everybody carry on your own.
This is what I keep hearing, but I don't understand why it's so complicated when every other jurisdiction on planet Earth seems to be able to sell beer in regular grocery stores, convenience stores, gas stations, you name it. You go into the US and you want alcohol, you can get it anywhere, and their society hasn't fallen apart and crumbled into ruins as a result. But we keep getting told here, no, it's very interlinked, it's very complicated, prices are going to go up. It's not going to be the panacea. It's a difficult thing. Why? Why is it so difficult? It is a consumer packaged good. It's consumable liquid that comes in cans and bottles, just like every other consumable liquid that comes in cans and bottles. There's no difficulty in Coke and Pepsi getting into grocery stores and convenience stores, the distribution, the warehousing, the retail, all of that. They're able to do it very efficiently without significant challenges. But we're constantly told here in Ontario, Canada, that no, without the beer store, without that mechanism, this is a really complicated and costly venture. I don't get it.
Yeah, I get the impression, Barb, that what's complicated and costly is undoing the deal. It's not necessarily coming up with an alternate model. I think Bob's right. We should be able to go down to the grocery store and buy my Coors Light or whatever my choice happens to be. But there's a distribution element to it that is baked into the cost of the beer. So effectively, I think that's one of the snags is the beer store delivers beer to the bar or whatever at no cost, and I put that in air quotes. They eat that cost. So all of a sudden now, Labatt, Molson, whoever, even the craft breweries are going to have to add that charge to the cost of the beer just to deliver it to the store or the bar or the restaurant. So I think that's the wrinkle. I again, it's not complicated in terms of finding an alternative. It's complicated in how you undo what you've already built.
Right. I'm a big believer in, why don't we give it a try and see how it goes? I mean, now we've got wine and a lot of beer selection in grocery stores. Not only have the prices are not more expensive in the grocery store. Sometimes I'll find certain items are on sale and they'll be on sale at the LCBO at the same time. I think that kind of thing is coming from whoever the manufacturer is. I agree with Bob that, the society has not disintegrated in the US with, and in different parts of Canada with beer in corner stores, convenience stores. How about we just treat people like adults? How about, kids are going to get adults to go in. Well, kids can get adults to go into the LCBO and do that now. Nothing is different. Or the beer store. Nothing is different. I think the beer store's got a great thing going and they don't want to loosen the reins. So there's going to be the fear mongering. Oh, prices are going to skyrocket and, kids will be getting their hands on it. I think it's about time that we start treating adults like adults, and start to modernize. Let's put it that way. Start to modernize a little bit and stop trying to scare everybody that it's going to be the end of the world. Because I think then it just becomes a normal thing. It's like growing up in a house where the alcohol is in a locked cabinet. You develop this type of view toward alcohol, or whether you grow up in a house where it's just available and it's not that big a deal. And parenting also has something to do with that, the way we talk to people about it. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. And I think it's just the way of the future. Like, let's just catch up and get there. The whole thing with the grocery stores has not been a massive deal. It's not been a big deal. They have their sections. They do it, whatever. I want it to get into Costco, because have you seen some of the alcohol sections at Costco in the US? I mean, they have great wines. I went to a Costco in Florida. They had a sommelier. Okay, like let's get with it.
Yeah.
I think I think we got to modernize a little bit. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
One thing, I think the beer store, as complicated as we're told it is going to be an easier undo. Bob, I don't see ever an Ontario government saying, okay, we're going to give up the LCBO because, a whack of that dough goes into public coffers already. So where beer store is all, private industry, they're the breweries. So I can't see, maybe more wine available in certain places, but I don't see a day where you don't have an LCBO.
No, it's too big of a cash cow. It's over $2 billion a year goes directly into the treasury from straight up profit and tax revenue. The tax piece will always be there. As we know, governments can tax anything, no matter where it is or how it moves. So they'll always have that. Back to your point, Dave, about the beer store and the distribution arm. Yeah, that is very important infrastructure that's very well established. So fine, let them keep it. Let that part live on. Let Brewers Warehousing and Retail. Originally, it was Brewers Warehousing, I think, was the original name of that entity. But the distribution piece, there's no need for that to go anywhere. It's not free. There is a cost of moving anything anywhere. So that's already in the price, I would dare say. And because there's a value to that, because that's a viable and necessary piece of the chain, I'm fine if that continues under the brewers' collective ownership, however they want to structure it. And wouldn't it also introduce the idea of possible competition? Because I'm sure there are other distribution companies and logistics companies that would be quite willing to step up and say, hey, Metro, Loblaws, Sobeys, etc., we can get the beer to you at this lower price. So bring that on, I say, as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of the conversations, but I get the feeling that based on the way the story was written in the Star today, there's still a bit of intrigue in the back rooms there to say, because you only get one shot at it to do it right. I mean, there's no way that, given everything else that's going on with the Ford government, they got enough problems and fires to put out to all of a sudden, in the next 2 years, have beer actually go up in price. That will be the crisis that will bring Doug Ford down.
Long live the days of Buck-a-beer.
Right. So,
yeah.
All right. Listen, it's been great to talk to you guys. It's good to see you, and we'll have to do this more often.
Love to.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you so much.
Barb DiGiulio, Bob Reid, I'm Dave Trafford, and this is Now and Next for Story Studio Network. Now and Next is produced by Becky Coles. Our production manager is Jamie Nickerson. Audio editors are Mike Trutler and Drew Garner. And our sonic logo designer is Greg McDonald. Our executive producers are Dave and Aaron Trafford.
This is SSN.
Story Studio Network.